Welcome once again to the So Weird podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Kat.
And tonight we are all feeling very inspired because we're talking about season 3, episode 17, The Muse, which, as the title indicates, is about muses. Not being amused, but a muse.
Yes.
Okay.
So first off, this is one of my favorite season 3 episodes, and I love the introduction to this one. We open up to see a cute little girl playing piano with this angelic, ethereal being behind her, clearly a muse, as Annie's discussing about how muses inspire people and what would happen if a muse would just disappear. And then we see the girl lose her inspiration, and all of a sudden, her beautiful piano playing doesn't sound so beautiful anymore. She tries a few notes, then gets frustrated and just walks away. And I really love the imagery we see of that muse in that opening because they look so angelic, so beautiful. The music this girl is playing is amazing. And then what we get in the episode is very different than what the intro portrays.
True.
Well, they're trying to put a hip, modern take on the muse concept. And for once, we know that little opening footage was actually shot specifically for the show because we even have the names of the actresses in that scene. Caroline Chan is the little girl, and Heather Dorkson is the female muse. So there you go, if you were curious.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and from there, this is, I think, one of the better season 3 episodes as well. And before off mic, we were saying that a good season 3 episode is still good with an asterisk there because there is definitely some super goofy shit in this one. But I think what makes it better is that it's a Molly-centric episode, which we haven't gotten in a while.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty sure that's why I like it more than other season 3 eps. And to me, it feels kind of like an older season episode a little bit. Especially since it starts off with Molly trying to find inspiration, and then automatically she starts talking about Rick, and then there's his theme music, and it just it hits me with flashbacks to all the earlier episodes.
Something interesting that first caught my attention when I was just rewatching this one is that when we come back from the intro, it shows that Henry Winkler and Tom J. Astle are listed as executive producers for this episode, and they were both doing work on seasons 1 and 2 as well. And Tom J. Astle is the creator of the series. So I feel like his influence has really helped this episode out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably a given considering it involves Molly and Rick's relationship. But that's one thing I don't really like because I feel like they're recreating the beginning of their relationship, which I don't think we know how it began canonically to the first 2 seasons, and this just feels like something they threw in for season 3.
That is actually something I want to address. When we first get back into this episode from the intro, first thing we hear is Rick's theme playing, which we haven't heard that in a while, so that's good to hear. So immediately it tugs at your heartstrings. And we find out that the premise for this episode is that Molly and the gang are staying in a hotel room, the exact same hotel room that she and Rick once stayed in after they had first met. And Irene says that this is the hotel where Molly met Rick 18 years ago, but the math doesn't add up. So I did some digging to the John Cooksey FAQ from 2001, and he was asked specifically about this episode. So a question he was asked was, how, where, when did Rick or Molly meet? Or did you ever make it up? And Cooksey's answer was, in my mind, and I think this is part of a song or episode, Molly first saw Rick playing on stage. All three, Molly, Rick, and John Kane, had solo careers before PKB and immediately fell in love with his voice. They were introduced first after Love at First Sight. And then there's a follow-up question that says, I know you told me how and why Molly and Rick met, but where and when? In the season 3 episode The Muse, it was in Eugene, Oregon at the Big Board Cabaret in 1983. Now, I don't think this was your idea because their first album was in 1981, In Family Reunion, Ned mentions that he toured with Molly since 1979. So did you ever make up where and when Molly and Rick met? And his response was, I recall somewhere that Molly inherited Ned from Rick, that Ned was Rick's roadie and became hers when they joined up. Anyway, I never got around to coming with where and when they met exactly, but it would have been at a stadium, not a club. Rick was a major rock star when they met, as was Molly. The model was always Buckingham and Nix joining Fleetwood Mac, and for John King, Joe Walsh joining the Eagles. And obviously it would have been before 1981. But Bruce and John, who are executive producers on this episode, were instructed not to follow up on our story arc. For instance, there wasn't to be any more mention of Fee's dad in the third season. Disney Channel wanted to let her show and obviously wanted to focus on Alex. Rick only returned, we were told, when certain storylines got so close to him that it was illogical not to mention him. So those are the answers we have from the original season 1 and 2 show writer.
Well, once again, there goes Kat with digging deep into the archives and the lore to dig up some very specific information.
I'll have to, because like Melissa, it does bother me that the timing in this episode isn't true to So Weird canon as we know it.
Yeah, and there's a moment where Jack says he's about the same age his dad was when he first met Molly, and something about that, I don't know if the timeline makes sense or lines up with that either. I found that to be a very odd statement.
Me too.
I don't know why they had to add all these details to this episode if it wasn't their original storyline. Why would... I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's basically my problem with the episode. It just, yeah.
But at the same time, it is nice that they're acknowledging Rick and Molly's relationship and Rick's death at all, because as Kat just said, season 3 completely dropped all the other reoccurring story points from the first 2 seasons. So it is surprising that this was mentioned at all.
Yeah, that is true.
That is something I was thinking about when we had the John Cooksey interview recently, was that he mentioned that they hadn't mentioned Fee's dad again until fans complained or something, and then they brought him back later in the series. So maybe it was fan influence why we got this episode at all.
Maybe.
I didn't realize that Disney cared.
Yeah, I'm very, very surprised to hear that.
Well, at the time the show was still airing, so maybe fans did have some influence then. We don't know.
Yeah.
If only we could have done one of those letter writing campaigns. I know back in the day when a show was at threat of being canceled, fans would write in letters and convince the network executives that there was a following to renew the show. I know that like Roswell and I think Forever Night and 1 or 2 other things got renewed that way.
Now it's through Twitter.
Right, yeah.
But
yeah, Twitter and email. I remember when Girl Meets World was being canceled, there was this whole thing with that fan base, people sending in emails to Disney and telling them to put it on take it over to Netflix.
Did that work?
No.
Because nowadays
anyway, we're getting off topic.
Disney does not care nowadays. That's why.
Yeah.
But to get back to the Muse here, I guess we should talk a little bit about the actual plot of this episode some more. Yeah, the Phillips family, well, okay, Molly, Jack, Carrie, and Annie are stopping by at this old hotel that has a personal connection to Molly, and because she feels like she has lost her muse. Molly isn't feeling very inspired right now. She's not working on new music at the moment. So why here at this hotel, Annie and Jack and Molly meet this person claiming to be the Phillips Muse, because apparently somewhere in the cosmology of So Weird, individual artists are assigned muses. Anyway, Annie and Carrie are all very skeptical, but eventually he does manage to convince them. But it still doesn't seem to help out Molly much because, twist ending, we're pulling a Shyamalan here. The muse wasn't sent for Molly. It's actually Jack's muse, because he's been going through some problems right now, typical late teens issue. He's just wondering what he wants to do with the rest of his life. And that, I guess, is the short version of the muse right there. So,
yeah.
Yep.
I did like the storyline for Jack. Just not being sure what he wants to do and kind of feeling lost in a way.
Which usually I think, like, how they portrayed Jack before is he's like pretty sure of himself.
Yeah.
He was smart in school, but in this episode, at least it like drops a little hint of like, photography. And we did see him with a camera once, I think, before in that other episode.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that one.
What was that one?
Snapshot.
There we go. Yeah.
Now that's something that bothers me because I love the subplot about Jack trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life, but it bothers me that they just stuck photography on him. Because
Yeah.
since when is Jack all that interested in photography? We only saw him look at a camera in one episode. I feel like the episode would be more solid to me if they had given Jack an interest in something that we could look back and be like, oh yeah, I kind of see that for Jack all along. Like maybe if he has an interest in becoming a police officer because he's good at protecting people, or a lawyer because he loves to argue, just something, maybe guitar player even because he plays the guitar.
Or like a
Anything
baseball
that we
player.
could like trace back.
Well, it's Jack's never been shown as being particularly interested in any one career. I mean, we know he's very studious, but we've never actually heard him say what he wants to be when he grows up. So, I don't know. I guess photography is as good as anything.
It could be just an interest, and not so much what he wants to do with his life, but more of a hobby.
Yeah.
But regardless, the most important thing about this episode that I have to mention that obviously takes precedence over anything else is the rapping waitress.
Yeah. And that waitress is also Dolores Herbig, as in her big brown eyes from the TV show Dead Like Me, which is an awesome show that I highly recommend. And I love her in this episode so much. That waitress rap was incredible. It never fails to put a smile on my face. And I'm really mad at Annie for dissing her and being so unimpressed and be like, oh, you think that proves that Muse is nothing?
Oh,
Like,
see,
shut
I was
up, Annie.
being
She's better
I
than
was being sarcastic.
Wow. Wow, Zach.
That's
No.
funny.
No,
You
no, the
don't
rap.
deserve waitress Lorraine, okay? She's too good for you.
Though she apparently that actress was also on the TV show Reaper, if anybody remembers that one. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I feel, one of the cringy moments. Anytime you have the whole joke is, oh, look at that white person trying to rap. Oh, look, isn't it great that they're appropriating another person's culture there? And of course, it is reprised over the closing credits. Do we have a clear HD version of that you could put in the end of the episode, Kathy?
I don't think so. I know someone made like a fan vid of it. I think that's on YouTube somewhere.
A fan vid for waitress Lorraine.
Yeah.
Was it one of you guys? Like, was it?
No, I don't think so. I'll find it.
I remember saying that. It was funny.
But yeah, that scene was kind of cringy to me. And then the Muse guy, the younger one, I've never liked him.
Yeah, he's just cringy to me. I don't like him or his acting either. Fun fact, he's actually Alex's older brother.
Ah.
Yeah, I could definitely see how, there was like a few shots where they showed him and her like right beside each other, no one else in the frame. And I'm like trying to see like, the resemblance. I can't really see it that much.
Yeah,
if it's just the hair color. I don't know.
I can't say I noticed it, but yeah, Matt David Johnson. I mean, Johnson's a pretty super common last name, so. But this was apparently his screen debut, and he's done a little acting since then. Episode of Psych, The L Word, Stargate SG-1, some things here and there.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. He directed a mini film called The Dishwasher, which Alex actually sang 2 songs for.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm seeing that on his IMDb here. Yeah, it's a little 11-minute short film.
Yeah, he did that. Then Alex wrote and did the soundtrack for it, basically.
Well, I guess that's the benefits of having a pop star for a sister.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't mind the Muse guy. I mean, the acting is fine. The character is kind of smarmy and silly, but the whole point is that he is a new Muse. He's a rookie. He's just getting a start here.
Now, this part of this episode always seems like a watered down ripoff of the movie A Simple Wish to me, where the male fairy godmother had no clue what he was doing and wreaks havoc everywhere. Like, that is Molly's Muse. Who isn't Molly's Muse, but Jack's Muse. Like, this young, cocky guy, no idea what he's doing, but pretends he does anyway on his first job. I love the movie A Simple Wish. I don't love that plot line here. And I think part of it is because I like the mythology aspect of things. And I really hate the contrast between that cool Muse we saw in the intro, this angelic being, very inspirational, to this. Like, it seemed like they made it too human. And they were just playing it for laughs, where it did a total disservice to the mythology of the show and the monster of the week aspect of the show.
I don't know. I mean, if you had somebody running around in a toga being all angelic and stuff, that would be out of place. I think it's kind of cute, sort of a modernization of a ancient Greek idea there.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
You know, there's a comparison could be the Siren episode. How I think they try to modernize that, and I liked how they pulled that one off. This one, I mean, it just feels like season 3, like they're just being funny and silly. So, I mean, now watching it, I'm okay with it. Like, I kind of like it more just because of Molly than the whole Muse thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
also what I think is a little weird is that Annie and Carrie easily start believe. Well, he does convince Annie by doing his tricks with the dog and the waitress, but Carrie kind of believes in the whole physical Muse as well, and then they go along with it and they just present it to Molly like, here's your Muse, instead of don't they realize the Muse is just someone that you look up to or they inspire you? I don't know. That was the weird part, I think.
Carrie seemed a little bit like cardboard in this episode, where he shows up with a dancing dog, and then when the dog leaves, like, I never thought you were a Muse anyway. And it just felt like a really bad attempt at humor because it wasn't funny and it wasn't genuine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another problem I have with this episode. It tries too hard to be funny and then just falls flat.
Well, this is the thing. It's very much a divided episode. For the most part, it is a typical mediocre, goofy season 3 episode, but there is just this little dollop of heart here in the middle because it acknowledges Molly's loss and her feelings of conflict, still lingering trauma from the death of her husband. So it does feel like a very typical season 3 episode, but they just injected just a little bit of season 1 and 2 in there.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that really saves it for me. But yeah, the bad humor is really bad.
And you can see where those two things meet up, and it's definitely the scene where Annie shows Molly the guy saying oh, here's your Muse, and he's not doing anything. He's failing at what he's supposed to do, and then Molly is just this is stupid, this is one of the stupidest things that I've done. And I feel so bad for her at this point because she's at a low point. She's trying to inspire herself, but by going somewhere it's not working. I feel a little bad for her on there.
Yeah, I actually did this storyline for Molly in this episode, just because I can connect with it so well. Being a writer and always having writer's block and not really sure what to do to inspire myself. I just connected to it so well.
Yeah, though it is super obvious to see where the whole business with the handyman is going.
Yeah, just let me add on one thing. For Molly's stupidest thing I've ever done speech, I feel like it's Mackenzie's acting that really gets that scene hitting home because it tugs at my heartstrings every time. But I
Hmm.
feel like that line with her reacting to Annie introducing her to her literal muse feels a little out of character for her to just accept that, okay, there's a physical muse in front of me and this is a stupid idea. I I'm like, why isn't Molly telling Annie like, "Oh, honey, I didn't mean a literal muse. What is this stranger doing in my house? I'm here to connect with Rick and get this guy out of my face."
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's where the muse was. It was in Rick, her inspiration that was tied to that place, tied to her love. And it
Yeah.
seems a little bit weird for her to accept the idea of a literal muse and be searching for some outside person to give her inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but again, it's season 3, so you just kind of have to go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like at first, I felt like canceling the gig seemed unlike Molly, but then she gives that really moving speech about how she doesn't want to go through the motions, and I'm like, oh, Molly, I love you so much. So Molly's definitely the highlight of this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the Molly and Jack scenes were nice as well because it reminds you back to season 1 and 2 where she always talks to Jack about some serious stuff.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. The Molly centric aspects of this episode are pretty good to the point where we actually even have Rick's ghost reappearing for the first time in quite a while.
I think first time in season 3. Only time in season
Only
3.
time in season 3.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so again, it feels a little bit like some season 2 got in my season 3 here, which is for the betterment of the episode. But yeah, I want to talk about that whole handyman subplot. Now, Molly's in the old building, and there's this handyman coming in. He's breaking through the walls. He's banging on the pipes. He's going up a ladder, cleaning up the gutters. Seems like she can never get a moment alone to actually work on anything because this dude is always butting his head in. But of course, if you've ever seen a movie or a TV show that deals with this kind of topic before, obviously you can pick up that, oh, well, this guy is Annie or is Molly's actual muse. In fact, you might notice when he's banging on the pipes with his wrench, that's the melody for the song she sings at the end there. So
Really?
yeah, if you listen
Huh.
closely, it's kind of the same bars as thinking about tomorrow. So
I'll have to re-listen to that and rewatch those scenes, but I did not catch that.
yeah. So, I mean, and I guess that's cute. I mean, moments like that, you have to remember the show, at least season 3 anyway, was being targeted at the 7 to 10-year-old crowd. That's the kind of thing that a kid would probably not pick up on, but an older person immediately catches. And that actor, Stephen E. Miller, has been in a ton of stuff. He has 171 credits on IMDb,
Oh, wow.
been in a ton of movies and TV shows. He was in Air Bud and Scooby-Doo 2, the second X-Files movie, just a lot of television. So
yeah, watching it as a kid, I didn't pick up on that, but now it's like he's like in every scene with Molly, and then he has that scene at the end with Jack where he's like, a muse is like kind of like when hard work and inspiration come together. I think that's what he says.
Yeah, that little bit was like super inspiring, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a good speech. He was a good muse. And I feel like Quinn Carter, the dark-haired muse, it was a joke and a bad joke. Like I get the show did it for laughs, but it wasn't funny.
all right, and just for the people who are still playing our bingo game, here's Zach mentioning an old horror movie. Stephen E. Miller was also in The Stepfather from 1987, so you can go ahead and check that off. But I do like the song too, by the way. It's very poppy. It doesn't feel like a season 1 or season 2 song, but it is catchy. And that is, I will admit that I have occasionally woken up and had this song stuck in my head for some reason. So
That's
Yeah.
funny.
I agree. It's a very upbeat song. I cannot bring myself to dislike it. There's just one thing about it that just rubs me the wrong way, and that's from an analytical standpoint. It doesn't seem to make much sense to me. the lyrics thinking about tomorrow, slam the door on days gone by. Like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about Rick? Are you slamming the door on his memory forever?
I don't
That
think
just rubbed me the
so.
wrong way.
I think it's about just moving forward with your life.
Yeah, like to me, the two good Molly songs of season 3 is this one and the other one. It's called A Different Story, right?
I think this is a good song, but for some reason, for me, it's kind of forgettable. Like, I completely forgot the song existed until I rewatched this episode.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I looked at the lyrics because I was thinking, like, what did they actually put in these verses? And, it starts off with her saying, sometimes I feel undone. A stranger comes, a whisper that I lost someone. Either she lost her muse or, she lost Rick. He
Yeah.
tells me right and wrong, helps me sing my song, lifts me up, makes me strong. To me, that's like Rick, or it could be her muse. But there is one line where she said, saying hello to the sunny sky. And there's probably no coincidence in these lyrics, but I like to see it as her getting over her grief from the lyric In Another World where she says, it's been night so long now. She doesn't think the sun will rise.
Oh yeah.
I like that connection.
Or yeah, yes, one day the sun will rise. And then I like hearing in this one saying hello to the sunny sky. Like, I think these songs are her getting over her grief, whereas season 1 and 2, she's just in her grief, wanting to get over it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a wonderful motivation there, and I agree, completely unintentional, because I don't think the
Yeah.
people who did the songs in season 3 put the amount of thought into it that John Cooksey and the people who worked on the season 1 and 2 songs did. Because this does feel like a kind of a generic pop song, sort of disconnected from the thread of the episode a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good song. And one time I did read an analysis of it online. I think it was on Conrad's Hideout, of somebody who believed that slamming the door on days gone by was talking about slamming the door on Rick and saying hello to the sunny skies. Their analysis was that it meant she was ready for a relationship with Carrie.
You know what?
Jesus.
I knew somebody was gonna say that. I knew it.
Well, because now Kat has completely perverted the way I watch the show. These tiny
Well,
little
there is.
interactions.
In this episode, right
Yes.
before they go, Carrie's holding onto Molly's arm, like, Mom, concert, you, me? Like, I'm not imagining that. That moment is there.
Yeah, I knew somebody was gonna mention that too.
Yeah, there's a little moment where Carrie also says, like, what's up with Molly? Is Molly okay? He expresses concern to her, which is obviously a totally platonic, normal interaction. When your friend is clearly going for some stuff, you're going to ask if they're doing all right. But at the same time, Kat has completely changed the way I watch this program. So immediately I'm going like, oh, there you go. There's your little Molly Carrie moment for the shippers out there.
Hey, I discovered a Molly Carey fan site when I was 13 years old. It has forever impacted the way I view this show. So thank you, the people who started the Molly Carey fandom.
but I do like the song. I laugh at Jack's dancing.
I love that Annie and Jack are dancing together during the song. They look so cute.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, so she's singing it, I think like she's, getting over her grief and all that. And then you see the Muse look at her and then it turns into Rick. And then Molly is like, she's like, whoa, it's Rick. And then he turns away. So I feel like that's Rick saying like, it's okay to move on. But that's just a lot of deep analysis by myself. Like probably not the show's meaning.
Yeah, I always interpreted it as Rick being Molly's muse.
Yeah, I saw it too, especially that scene.
And then another thing I noticed was that when Rick does make his final appearance, the music that accompanies him isn't that guitar of Rick's theme. It's more of like this Twilight Zone-y sound. So now it feels like the door has been slammed on Rick. His theme is no longer playing.
That's what I thought too.
Or it's just the season 3 or whatever not caring.
Yeah,
No,
I
because they
think
played Rick's theme at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think we're both being longtime fans of the show who are very passionate about it. We're all seeing these things here, and they were not intended in any way. But,
I don't think it is, but yeah, maybe they didn't realize like, oh, they play his motif theme all the time when he's there. Maybe they forgot.
Yeah.
but I mean, I've basically said everything I need to say about this episode already. It's a pretty good season 3 episode because it focuses on Molly and it acknowledges Rick, and it gets a little more emotional than we are used to seeing from the show at this point in its life. But it still has a bunch of really goofy stuff, and the premise is still really silly and very cutesy. But what are you gonna do, man? It's season 3. Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite season 3 episodes. I'm sorry it sounded like I was hating on it, but it just feels like so weird in an alternate universe. Like Harry felt like cardboard to me in this episode. Jack felt like he was being forced into photography, where it felt like he had no real connection to it. So it feels like my 3D characters just don't feel like 3D characters anymore, and I'm sad about that. But I do enjoy this episode. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it makes me smile every time, and it brings back Rick.
Yeah, I think they said Muse too many times. The word Muse, they said it so many times.
Maybe somebody should make a video with all the times they say Muse.
A Muse
Yeah.
supercut, and then they can do a supercut of this podcast episode of all the times we have said Muse. This one was written by Bruce Zimmerman, who did Still Life and Voodoo, which are also 2 of the better season 3 episodes.
Mhm.
But he also did Talking Board and Blues from season 2, which are like weaker episodes in my opinion. Oh, and then Sacrifice from season 1, which I do like. So obviously the guy's worked on the show before. He should have a better idea, perhaps, of who these characters are. But I agree with Kat. I don't know. Carrie is acting weird, and it just feels like they gave Jack photography because they didn't know what else to do with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing I want to mention that we haven't discussed is Annie's outfit. I feel like they tried to make up for going a little bit dark with Rick by amping up the brightness of her outfit. Like it's so bright purple. It's very classic Disney.
Yeah.
I think also Annie was acting weird in this episode. Well, I always feel like her emotions aren't like they're like overdone in season 3. Like why is she so angry in this episode? Like I know she wants to help Molly.
Maybe she's annoyed. Maybe she's annoyed by her brother being there.
She's like so mad at the guy. She's always saying all these like mean jokes to him or like comebacks to him, but she does that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like her emotions are kind of like overdone in season 3, but
Well, she wasn't in the other 2 seasons, so.
That's one of the things I actually really like about this episode, Annie's attitude toward him.
Yeah, I did see in the credits that they credited the dog. It said Dancing Dog Highway. That's its name.
Anytime I see a dog in an old movie or TV show, all I can think is that dog's dead by now.
Oh my god! Wow.
Nobody needed to think about that.
And then I did see who wrote the lyrics. It's just a guy named Dana, and he's still making music. He did music for a lot of films like The Good Dinosaur, that Kurt Cobain Montage of Heck, Resident Evil, Boondock Saints, Silent Hill. So
lots of stuff that probably does production in Canada.
Yeah. I'm assuming. Maybe this is one of his first things.
So is there anything else we want to say about this one? I feel like I've already exhausted my material here.
It's a bleak episode for me for the most part, but with, a few things here and there.
It's bleak. Oh my god.
I don't like it. I was actually talking to Kathy and Kat about it before you came on. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be the only Debbie Downer, aren't I?
I was actually in the room for that comment.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was here.
I have a really shitty memory.
Yeah. I mean, anything else we want to say? Are we ready to move on to ratings, or I bet Kat has more to say.
I'm good with ratings.
Okay, we're all right. I'm gonna give this a 6, right in the middle for me. Neither, like, not just a little above the margin as far as season 2 stuff goes, but it's still kind of a typical shitty season 3 episode. I mean season 3, but
Yeah.
yeah. So 6.
Yeah, I'll say 6 as well because I like watching it. I just wish the whole silly Muse guy was gone.
Yeah. I think I will probably go with a 5.5 to 6. The humor is just really bad. I really, really do not like how they messed with the timeline. It's really weird that I'm the one complaining about that, but yeah. But they do make up for it for the storylines between Molly and Jack and Annie's attitude, I guess.
I gave this one a 6.5 because it is one of my favorite season 3 episodes. It is a pleasure to watch it, even all this time later. I'm just really disappointed that they did a disservice the Monster of the Week aspect of the show with how they turned a Muse, this amazing ethereal being, into a cocky, smarmy joke of a human. Like, I hate what they did with the actual Muse, but I love that they brought back Red. And I love that they tried to develop Jack a little bit, even if I don't agree with the way that they went about it.
Okay. Well, we seem to be mostly in agreement about this one, though. So, okay, are we ready to move on to feedback?
Yes.
All right. We have a lot, apparently. We've been away for a bit, took a bit of a break for the holidays, and everybody has things to say to us. Our first bit of feedback here is from some joker named Jimmy. I don't know who this guy is. This is on our Fountain episode. He said, I just realized that when Rick was dancing with Fee when she was a baby, Molly was recording on her video camera. Then Fee wakes up and asks her mom if her dad ever danced with her. We know the family has footage from the younger years, but where'd this Christmas video go? Did Molly lose family videotape she shot?
I think this question was brought up before. I think from Andrea, I think. And she said that, and I was like, wow, that's such a great point. But I guess she did lose them.
Somewhere there are the missing Phillips family tapes. The missing tapes.
Maybe they taped over it with Jeopardy or something.
Yeah. Simpsons reruns.
Yeah. This one is from Matthew. He commented on our twin episode on YouTube. They said, actually, I rewatched this episode. If you look closely, when Fee is holding onto the ledge, there's another part on the ledge where she would have fallen onto instead of the street. Just wanted to put that out there. So he's saying that there's like two scenes put together. But
Well, I think what he's saying is there's a smaller ledge underneath of her that you can see that she would have fallen on instead of hitting the street.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I have noticed that before. Like, that's not that big of a drop.
Yeah, well, though at the same time, I wouldn't want to fall off the side of a building onto some sort of concrete ledge there. I mean,
Yeah,
that would,
that is true.
it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
I probably would somehow hit the ledge and miss it and then roll off.
Yeah, it's a dangerous
Yeah.
situation. I wouldn't do that with an infant.
Yeah, I probably would. I'm that bad.
You would throw an infant off of a hotel?
And depending on how annoying they are, they can be
Oh, my.
annoying sometimes.
All right, well, let's just move on from the casual infanticide here.
All right.
Okay.
So this next comment is from Princess Fernandez on the John Cooksey interview. Just finished listening to the John Cooksey interview, and it was awesome hearing what else he had to say about the process and impact of the show. But yeah, I can't imagine it's so weird being produced within the same constraints, confines, zaniness as even Stevens, lol. So I'm glad the show took the direction it did and made it stand out. Agreed, Princess Fernandez.
Yeah, have you guys ever tried to rewatch Even Stevens? That's a show that does not hold up.
Really?
I never
Oh.
even liked it when it was on air.
Oh, I liked it at the time, but the
loved it.
zaniness. Oh, okay.
But I loved it back then. I've never watched it though.
the zaniness is oppressive, but that's just me being old, I think.
Yeah, I think I tried to rewatch it after listening to this Even Stevens podcast, and I just can't get back into it. It doesn't hold up. Not for me, anyways.
Yeah, but it is sort of cute to go back and see little baby Shia LaBeouf
Yeah.
back before he was a movie star.
Okay.
We did have one other comment on the John Cooksey interview. It was from Bookworm's Finest. They said, sorry, just making sure that no one thinks he's wrong. The factors of 165 are 3, 5, and 11. And the letters of 15 and 11 do correspond to the letters O and K, respectively. He was probably just thinking of the 65 part, which does have factors of 5 and 3. Don't say that to him.
Wow, thanks, man. That's that's totally beyond me. But
Oh my god! And they also
They did
said,
the math.
also sad no one asked about the ghost woman in the intro, or if Jack is actually King Arthur himself, as King Arthur is said to rise again when Albion needs him, and Albion is part of the world. So weird.
Has there ever
Wow.
been any suggestion that Jack is descendant from King Arthur, or?
I don't think so.
Okay, I mean, I knew he was a knight, but I never heard that he was specifically King Arthur.
No, in the
No.
FAQ, it always said that he was a reincarnated knight, but I've never seen anything in there about King Arthur. We
Okay,
do have an answer, though, for the question about the ghost that we see in the opening credits. That was something that was specifically shot from the opening. It was some crew member running around in a sheet during the filming of Simplicity. So the
Yeah.
reason why we didn't ask that question is because we already had the answer to it in the FAQ, which any fan of So Weird should check out because it's awesome to see.
So because we were gone
yeah.
for a while, we did also get a lot of comments, and we're not going to read all of them because there are so many. But we do want to say thank you to Blue Eyed Scorpio and Nisea for all the feedback. We do read all the comments, and we do appreciate all of them. We just don't always have time to read all of them on air.
Yeah.
There's a comment from Bernardo. He says, "Hello, my name is Bernardo. I'm from Brazil. I'm really glad there are people out there who remember this and watch So Weird. I thought I was the only one. Haha, great podcast."
I feel like
Nice
we all
to-
felt like we were the only one to remember the show until we found each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how everyone feels like, especially like on Twitter. I'm always saying like, does anybody else remember this show? I see that like every time I search it. I feel like if it was on some streaming or on TV, like people will realize like you might have thought this was a distant like dream, but it was a real show.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly how I felt about it before I found it again. Like, I didn't know if it was a real show or not, or if it was just a figment of my imagination. Yeah, I'm very glad I refound it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about this before, how this is a show I definitely remember seeing. I have very specific memories of it, but it was also one that I didn't think about for a long, long time until I went back and rewatched it because, yeah, there's just nobody talks about the show. Disney doesn't reference it. It's never brought up. There's no way to watch it unless you dig up the bootlegs that are floating around the internet. So I think that has contributed to it being sort of kind of forgotten, but not really forgotten, because if you mention the show So Weird to people, they remember it, but it's just not talked about much.
Yeah, I have basically the same relationship with it.
And I am forever grateful for the people who did create bootleg DVDs because I was lucky to get those when I was still a kid. So I've been fortunate to have this show growing up. So I never felt like I imagined it. I've always been able to go back and rewatch it whenever I want.
I mean, I've got DVDs as well. They're pretty shitty. The quality looks like they were ripped right off of YouTube, but I do own a physical copy of the show. Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for everyone. Yeah, thanks for all the comments that we got throughout the little holiday break that we had.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to discuss this week?
I guess we can say thanks everyone who participated in our little So Weird celebration that we had a few weeks ago. Because it's been 20 years officially now since the premiere episode of So Weird. January 18th, 1999 is when that episode came out. Actually, the first 2 episodes came out. So it's been 20 years. Disney did not say anything at all. They acknowledge other stuff like Lizzie McGuire and some other movie, Xenon.
Actually, the Lizzie McGuire one was like the day after So Weird's anniversary, wasn't it?
God.
Something like that. It was like a day or 2 after.
That just twists the knife.
Yeah, I know, right?
But we tried our best to get fans talking, and people joined in. People made fan art. We were just talking about our favorite episode songs and all that, and then Kat made a video, an awesome video of like, all of us talking about why we like So Weird. So if you haven't seen it, it's pretty cool. Go ahead and watch it.
And thank you so much to everybody who contributed. It was so awesome to see people remembering and loving the show.
Yeah, my Twitter feed was full of that stuff. I was really surprised by the reaction we got, so that was great.
Yeah, I was also very surprised by how many people joined in for that little celebration.
And now let's keep the celebration going all year with the original air dates of the episodes.
Yeah, it's like mainly not every Friday, but at least for this month, it was every Friday. Probably the next month is when an episode premiered. So I'll just be on Twitter like, hey, what do you guys think about this episode and all that?
And go back and re-listen to our podcast episode about it.
Yes.
And there is just that general feeling of like, oh, wow, this thing I remember as a kid and loved as a kid is now, old enough to drink practically, almost old enough to drink. And it just makes me feel like, that gif from Saving Private Ryan of Matt Damon aging in like 50 years and 2 seconds. That's just how I feel constantly these days, all the time.
You gave me a great idea for the 21st anniversary, Zach. That should be the day we do the Drunk So Weird podcast.
Oh my God.
21st anniversary. Let's do it.
The anniversary of what?
So Weird's 21st anniversary.
Oh, fantastic. Yes. All right. I will imbibe.
And also, again, big thanks to John Cooksey for, taking time and having the interview with us. So if you haven't listened to it, it's really awesome. You can really hear how much he enjoyed the show and enjoyed making it and all the memories he's had.
Yeah, and honestly, we already have, if we ever get up the nerve or if he's ever interested in coming back for a part 2, we already have enough questions for one. So
yeah. But yeah.
I mean, that was definitely cool. Getting John Cooksey on the show was something we have been talking about pretty much from the beginning. So that was definitely a neat experience.
Yep.
Yeah. It was definitely so inspiring for me to be a part of that. And seeing just how much similarities I have with John Cooksey, it's honestly weird. But
all right.
We'll try to keep those interviews going. I mean, we'll keep asking. We'll see who actually responds and all that.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the thing. We have no control over whether people get back to us or if they're interested. So, but we do. Hopefully, we'll have some more of those coming soon at some point.
Yeah.
All right. I think Kat fell asleep, and and if nobody else has anything else to say, are we ready to wrap this one up? Oh, you are alive. Good.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Okay, we are no longer feeling inspired. the Muse has run its course. This has been the So Weird podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Kat.
And thank you for listening. And as always, keep the faith.
Sometimes I feel undone. A stranger comes. A whisper that I lost someone. He tells me right and wrong. Helps me sing my song. Lifts me up, makes me strong. Oh yeah, now I'm thinking about tomorrow. Slamming the door on days gone by. Saying hello to the sunny skies. Now I'm thinking about tomorrow. Slamming the door on days gone by. Leaving my troubles, saying goodbye. Goodbye.
Here, why don't you take this?
Sometimes the road is
camera?
slow.
Really? I was going to take some shots for my portfolio, but
Who knows the way the cold wind blows, but then a tiny spark will catch my heart, giving me a new start. Oh, yeah. Now I'm thinking about tomorrow, slamming the door on days gone by, saying hello to the sunny skies. Now I'm thinking about tomorrow, slamming the door on days gone by, leaving my troubles, saying goodbye. Now I'm thinking about tomorrow, slamming the door on days gone by, saying hello to the sunny skies. Now I'm thinking about tomorrow, slamming the door